Hey guys, welcome back if you're new here. My name is Courtney. I'm a homeschooling mom to two boys. I have a 5-year-old and an almost 3-year-old. So in this video, I wanted to show you guys what our plans are homeschooling wise for our summer. So this summer will be a little bit different from the summers that I've had before. So last summer was the summer before my son's pre-kinder year, and so we did do some continuing curriculum. It had a lot of hands-on activities, and it really fed off of my son's interest at the time. Now with this summer though, this is going to be the summer before he goes into kindergarten. And so our pre-kinder year that we have like 2 weeks left with has been a good stepping stone for kindergarten, especially going from what I did for him for preschool. It was definitely a jump. It took a little bit more time. He was definitely doing more serious handwriting and things like that. But with this summer, it's just like, it's a little bit more real. It's a little bit more serious. While we don't have to record this for our state, it still just feels like kindergarten is the real deal. And so with our summer, I want to make sure we're still doing something. And again, this really just comes to your own personal choice, your own personal opinion as a parent or a guardian. I think a lot of it has to do with how much time you have in your school year, like how many breaks have you taken throughout. There are people who might take several weeks off during their main school terms, whereas summer is just kind of like a break as well, as just extended. And then there's other people who take very few days or very few weeks off during their school term, their main school term. And then when it comes to summer, you want a larger time off, kind of like the school districts would do. And so when it comes to our family, I have made the choice that I want to keep a little bit of a rhythm, and so I tend to focus on continuing doing our morning time, our morning basket, and focusing on that, but still having a break from the rigorous curriculum. For me, I have seen a benefit in giving your child a good chunk of time off, but also continuing some sort of rhythm. It is nice for your child to wake up and not have to worry about school and projects, especially as your children get older. But because my kids are so young, I still see the benefit with my oldest to wake up during the summer and still kind of keep that 4 to 5 day going and include our morning basket time. And really it just sticks to that, is whatever I include for our morning basket, I'm not going to go out and buy curriculums and be doing some type of rigorous schedule like that, at least for the time that we are in right now. Again, as my kids get older, I will definitely just weigh this option of my kids need more of a reset, more of a refresh, and not having, just kind of having it open-ended. I mean, I was raised in public school districts, and I know I looked forward to summer. I loved waking up and not having to worry about anything. And so with summer, I do want to kind of keep it a little bit of a schedule, but I do also want, for myself as well as my son, just a little bit of a reset before we go into his kindergarten. Normally, I will do our homeschool day at the beginning in the morning while my kids are eating breakfast, and we start with our reading and we just kind of progress through that. And so for summer, we're really just kind of focusing on those warm up type of readings and stuff, and we're just not going to be getting into like the math and the science and things like that to the more rigorous side. So again, just kind of keep that in mind that, we already are kind of in that routine where we start our homeschool day right now in the morning, and we kind of start with that morning basket, that morning time type of subjects, and we just will kind of be stopping after that in the summer. We won't progress into, now we're moving on to our math, and now we're moving on to our science and things like that. A lot of the resources I'm going to show you, we won't do every single day. Some of these we will start, and once I'm finished with that one, I'll add one of these other resources. So I don't want to show you all these resources and you're like, oh my gosh, you're going to do those every single day. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. These are just the options that I have grabbed, and I will cycle through these. With that said, I am going to go ahead and show you the resources I got for our morning time. Now, I am going into this summer basket, summer morning time resources, assuming that I won't finish all of these, or there will be some that I won't finish at all, and we will just carry those over into the fall, particularly the individual books that I have that are more story-based, okay? So with that said, let's just go ahead and jump right in. So as a Christian, the Bible is the most important thing to us, and so I am not gonna not do the Bible, right? And so we will continue doing Bible and Christian theology throughout our summer. We'll continue doing that. The one thing I didn't bring was our catechism cards. We will continue doing our catechism cards throughout the summer. And I usually will just pick 2 questions and we'll just focus on those for the week. That's what's been working for us. And I usually will just read the question slowly. My son will dictate it back to me, and then we'll do that with the answer as well. And we'll just kind of focus on 2 questions a week. So we will continue to do our catechism, but what we will do as far as Bible goes, and we've read through this one before, but the reason I chose this one is because my 3-year-old is just at that, my almost 3-year-old is at a really good age where he's listening to the stories. He is starting to kind of like ask questions and retain the information that we're reading. And so this is the Beginner's Gospel Story Bible, and it's by Jared Kennedy, and this one is fabulous. Again, it is a storybook Bible. It is not going to be a word-for-word Bible or a child's translation Bible, so just kind of keep that in mind if you don't agree with storybook Bibles, and I totally understand that. It is nice and thick. But what I love about it is it has very engaging pictures, but it also is not incredibly text heavy, and so it really will keep my son's attention, my younger one, but it also just has very foundational theological truths in it. I will go ahead and put a little B-roll in. You can see me flip through the storybook Bible a little bit easier. You can see that it's going to have Old Testament, the promises that are made, and then the New Testament, the promises kept. I think it's good to focus on the table of contents when you're dealing with a storybook Bible, so you can kind of see what topics, I guess is the appropriate word, that the storybook Bible will be focusing on versus maybe which ones are being left out. And so that I think is really good to get a good glance over. And it has a title, and then it does have the Bible verses that it's kind of drawing that from, and you could even go and read the Bible verses before or after you read the story from the storybook Bible, and that would be a great thing to do. That might be something I will do this time around, reading this through, because of my older son. And so again, there is so much you can do, and you don't have to just read the storybook Bible. And so I like that they give you those Bible verses. And so like I said, it's very colorful. I love the images. I love how the text is kind of fun, and it's kind of all over the place, but it's also not incredibly text heavy. So, and that is my plan, is to finish the storybook Bible before fall, because we will be starting the Ergemeyer's Bible for my son's kindergarten year, if you watched my kindergarten Bible curriculum announcement. Now the next thing that we have is The Biggest Story, and this is by Kevin DeYoung, and it says How the Snake Crusher Brings Us Back to the Garden. So I have heard this was highly recommended. I actually bought this a long time ago, and we are just now kind of getting to it. I think, again, it is kind of like a storybook Bible, but again, it is more on the story side, and it's not very like topical focused, if that makes sense, like Noah's Ark and things like that. It's going to go more into the bigger story. So I will kind of flip through. You can see he's this author is Don Clark. He's very well known for his imaging. It's absolutely beautiful, and I think this will just be a good change of pace for my older son. We've read numerous storybook Bibles, and so I think this will be a good change. And the reason I'm wanting to add this in for our summer is just because the Beginner's Gospel Story Bible, again, I don't want to say it's basic for my son. It's just he already kind of knows those things in the storybook Bible. And again, I don't want to say, oh, it's basic, because when it comes to Christianity and it comes to raising our children, you are never gonna not teach these most basic foundational truths in Christianity. But it's also important that we do branch off of them. And so the story Bible, I would say, is definitely more geared towards my youngest when he's joining us, but he also will listen into the biggest story. So let me go ahead and just kind of read a little bit about it as you see me kind of flip through, and you can see the pictures. Once upon a time, there lived a man and a woman, and they were the happiest people on the planet. True, they were the only people on the planet, but they were still terrifically happy. Unfortunately, things didn't stay happy and wonderful for long. The Bible is full of exciting stories that fill children with awe and wonder, but kids need to know how all these classic stories connect to Scripture's overarching message about God's glorious plan to redeem his rebellious people. So again, I'm very excited. I will definitely keep you updated on if we liked it or not. And again, we'll just kind of sprinkle that one in as well. We might read that one more at our nighttime or before rest time. And again, that's how I kind of like to do our readings, is our morning time and our morning basket, our morning warm-up during our homeschool year. Again, we do start with a lot of our readings, but because we're a literature-based curriculum, we have so many books to read, so much, that sometimes we will do it before rest time or even before bedtime. So I do plan on reading both of those 4 to 5 times a week. Okay, so this is the other resource that we're going to kind of walk through in our morning time, and this is Leading Little Ones to God, and this is a child's book of Bible teachings. And so this one, I'm pretty sure it was Science Mama who threw this out, and it used to be part of Sunlight's curriculum, and I think they got rid of it, and I don't remember what year it was. So this one is definitely a little bit more of an engaging, almost kind of like a Christian theology book for teaching your child more of the theological components to Christianity. But and I find that that's kind of where my son is right now, where he understands God, he understands Jesus, he understands a lot of the basic story, most of the basic stories in the Bible. It's just now he wants to start like bringing it together and like, why is this more important to me in my life, right? Like, how is this going to start affecting me as a Christian, right? So Leading Little Ones to God, I think, will start to kind of bring in more of those components. And so if you look through the table of contents, you can see like part 1, looking for God. Part 2, God is very great. Part 3, all that God does is good. Part 4, sin spoiled the world. Part 5, God's law. Part 6, God loves us. Part 7, what Jesus did. Part 8, about the Holy Spirit. Part 9, how we become children of God. Part 10, how God's children live and grow. Part 11, God helps his children live for him. And part 12, when we pray to God. Part 13, about God's church. And then part 14, things that are to happen. And so I will give you a little bit of a B-roll of the table of contents, because under each part, it's going to go into so much more detail on that main topic for each part. So like under part 2, God is one. God is everywhere. God knows all things. So again, just getting a little bit more into the theology of Christianity, and that is definitely, I think, where my son is. And I love how it is laid out. You have a good chunk to read. You have something to talk about, so some questions. You do have a memory verse. There is a suggested reading that you can read from your Bible. There's also a hymn and a prayer. And I think this will just be absolutely wonderful to kind of start off. Now, I don't know exactly how intense this will be. Will we do a part a week? Will I do, a part for 3 weeks? Again, you can go back and look at the table of contents where, each part has, a good 4 or 5, sometimes more sections that it focuses on within that part. And so we'll just kind of see how my kids are, and just kind of see going through it, what works and what doesn't. I honestly do not plan on finishing this summer. I'm planning on taking more time going through it. But again, it really just depends on how my kids are doing, how receptive they are to this. Okay, so the kind of like the last Bible item I have is the Bible questions and answers for kids. It says Challenging Questions That Kids Ask About God and the Bible, and it is by Dave Streckler, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's a book that is going to start answering these very foundational questions, but yet sometimes as an adult, they can be very hard to answer for a 3-year-old or for a 5-year-old. And so as someone with a background in Christian theology, I know the answer, right? But to put it in a way that my 5-year-old can understand, it can actually be quite challenging. And so my oldest is definitely to the age where he's asking, who created God? Where is heaven? And again, sometimes it's just, these are questions where you're like, oh, they kind of catch you off guard. Like, I'm so excited that you're asking these questions. But I have to figure out a way to tell you without it going completely over your head. And so this book will just be a lot of fun to incorporate. I plan on carrying this into our fall. We may do a question, we may only do this once a week. We may do it twice a week. It really just kind of depends. If you have a 5-year-old, you have probably heard many of these questions asked. And so I am very excited to read through these. They also include a question and a quiz to kind of test. And there's also Bible verses that can go with the question and the quiz. And so you can kind of further look up the Bible verse and read that with your kids. So there are definitely ways that you can kind of curtail this based on your child's biblical understanding, but also just their age. Okay, the next thing that we will be focusing on are going to be the 365 manners. So I have seen so many of these kinds of books floating around, and I absolutely love this. These types of books, especially in our day and age with just the way kids are, let's just be real. And honestly, it doesn't matter if you homeschool your kids or not. I think every child needs this type of exposure in their life. Again, particularly the day and age we live in. And so there's games, activities, and other fun ways to help children learn etiquette. And so I originally was going to incorporate this in our pre-kinder year, and it went to the side really fast. And so I am hoping to start this in the summer, and we won't have as much, like curriculum and stuff that's overwhelming me, and I won't have a ton of prep to do. So this will kind of replace my prep time. And I think the idea is that you read a little bit by yourself, and then there's a section that you do with your kids. It is outlined with a date, and I think that is definitely one way you could do it. I also think another way would just be going through and kind of seeing what is pertinent to my kids right now at their age level. So again, I don't necessarily think at this age of my kids that I need to be going through one of these every single day. I think that I will probably pick and choose, and that'll be part of my prep work for our summer week. Is I will just read through this and be like, okay, what do I want to focus on this week, right? And like I said, it might be one of these a week, it might be 2, it might be 3, it might be 4. I don't know. It really kind of just kind of depends on how receptive my kids are. And I will probably just go through on Sunday or Saturday or Sunday and pick which ones we want for the week. Again, just kind of based off of, are we doing this once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week? And again, a lot of it is just going to be on how much time is the other stuff taking us, and how receptive are my kids to this? Am I seeing the fruit from this? Are they getting it? And so that's really how I plan on using it. I am very excited for this. I am definitely a huge proponent of raising kids who are respectful and kind and have manners. And I know we all say that as parents and guardians, but I tell you, there are some kids that I see and their parents are right there, and I'm like, really? You're not going to say anything? Your child is literally throwing rocks at somebody's car and you're not going to step. I mean, again, it's just like, are we that busy? I don't think we are. Okay. The other thing we're going to focus on is a child's book of poems. And so this book I have seen highly recommended around Instagram, and I had it saved, and I just have not gone back to it. And so for our All About Reading pre-reading, we had a lot of weekly poems that, I mean, they weren't all poems, but a lot of them were. And my kids absolutely loved them, and they loved kind of like the rhyming or the lyrical pattern to them, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And poetry is supposed to be really good for kids, especially young, when they're like starting to read and stuff like that. So if you're a teacher and you know the science behind that, go ahead and comment down below. But I've heard a lot of really good benefits for kids. This one is really nice. It goes back and forth between like black images, black and white images, and then colorful images. I just absolutely love it. It looks really, really fun, and it also looks just very, very sweet. I can kind of do a little pan over the table of contents, and you know, again, some of these I have heard of, and some of these, most of them, I have not. And so I think this will just be a really sweet addition to our morning time in the summer. And like I said, we might do a couple pages, we might do several pages. I do plan on finishing this one this summer though, because I do have a whole other book of poems that I bought, and you will see that in my next video, which is my kindergarten morning time, or my kindergarten morning basket. If it's out, I'll link it down below. So I do plan on finishing this one this summer. We will definitely be able to finish that one, but this one just seems very sweet if we're sitting outside, even for snack time in the quote summer where we live. I would love to just sit outside and read this with my kids. Again, I'm picturing it, but I don't know if that'll happen. Okay, then I also have the treasure tree. This is helping kids understand their personality. And so this is another recommendation I saw, and I think they have a few different ones of this, but it was highly recommended, and I got it off of Thrift Books. I kind of read the back while I flip through. It says, follow the 4 best friends, a lion, an otter, a golden retriever, and a beaver, as they search for the 4 golden keys to the treasure tree. On their adventure, they discover that their different personalities are some of the most precious treasures they have. The treasure tree is more than a delightful story with lavish illustrations. It's a unique, fun way for parents and children to discover their own personality strengths. A helpful personality checklist is included to enable children to identify their own special character traits. Now, it is published by Tommy Nelson, so it's a division of Thomas Nelson Publishers. So that does tell me it has a Christian book, or it has a Christian background to it. So again, if you're secular watching this, you know, you might just want to read more reviews further into it. Like I said, I bought this last year, so I can't remember if it had a Christian component to it, but it looks absolutely wonderful, and I think my kids will enjoy it regardless, just as a really good story book. Okay, so the other thing we're going to continue doing is handwriting and practicing my son's name. So my son has gotten to the point where he has a very long name. His name is Nehemiah, so he can't like just handwrite it out from memory yet. We're just not there, and I'm not rushing it. It's totally fine. But he can copy it if it's in front of him. So typically what I will do is, I explained this in one of my videos recently, so I apologize if I'm being redundant, but I have a little whiteboard that has the wide lined, and I will just write Nehemiah on one of the lines, and then down below he can write it based off of looking at his name. And so I don't want to lose that progress. The other thing I might incorporate is him practicing his birthday, maybe our address and our phone number, just because I know based off of flipping through the curriculum, we're going to be getting into that where he needs to start knowing at least me or his father's phone number, and then our address probably isn't a bad thing for him to start practicing, and his birthday. And again, I don't really know if that means he'll be handwriting it or if we'll continue just kind of verbally dictating it to one another. We'll just kind of see, but I do kind of plan on continuing with that personal information as well. But as far as handwriting goes, in addition to his name, we will be doing these. So this one will be for my youngest son, my 3-year-old, and this one will be for my older son. And so for my older son, it says it's pre-kindergarten, but it is definitely geared towards what I want him working on for not only his entire kindergarten year, but just going into kindergarten. And so it's a wipe clean practice. It's the ABCs 1, 2, 3, colors and shape. And so this is what it is. I showed it in one of my curriculum videos, but it does have the uppercase and the lowercase. It has a little phonetic practice here. It does have you tracing the A and then the small a, which I really like because you don't actually often see that kind of practice. And it just, again, is cementing it in their brain that these are both A. They're both going to make the same sound, again, depending, but they are the same letter, right? And so just kind of seeing, this is the big one, this is the little one. And then this is really why I bought it, because he can trace the big A, the big A, the big A, and then he can try to freehand them. Again, not from memory, but from being able to see the ones over here. Same thing with the A. He can practice tracing it, but then he can freehand it. And that's really where we are right now, is I want him to start freehanding that kind of stuff, freehanding his letters. And so you can see, just kind of continues on. And then there is some number practice, which again, you know, we won't be doing math technically, but I don't want him to lose his practice of tracing his numbers and then freehanding his numbers, as well as understanding that there's a numerical value. There's also it written out, like when we're reading it, and then just being able to count it as a quantity. Looking on the 0. So for my youngest, I have the get ready for pre-K, and again, I might have them work on this every day, or they might do it twice a week. Again, I will just kind of see where they need to go and how they're doing, because I don't want my oldest particularly to get burnt out, but I also want him to practice. And so for my youngest, he's really getting into just practicing his tracing. Whoops. He's also really into letters right now, and so he can just kind of practice these. And I love that it includes the phonetic images as well, so we can kind of practice, oh, this letter says this, and, you know, oh, for, you know, dinosaur, or dog. And it's also really good just as a speech component. Both of my children are in speech therapy, and I'll never miss an opportunity to just practice his letters, you know, dog, and things like that. And so for him, it's just, he wants to do stuff that he sees his brother doing. It does have the numbers as well, so we can practice tracing the number. We can practice saying the number, which is really more where he's at right now. We can practice counting them, and he's all about the numbers as well. And then there's also a section that has the shapes. So he's not really interested in shapes, but I think it being in a book and being able to trace will give us the opportunity to talk about them. And then there's also some areas on the colors, and he's very interested in colors as well. Typical what a 3-year-old would be interested in. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about the books that I'm going to integrate in our morning time, I would say, in this time frame of the morning. But these might also be just ones that we read before rest time or before bedtime. And these are ones that I just want to start focusing my attention on for my kindergartner, but also for my 3-year-old. These are topics that, you know, sometimes if your kid's watching a show, it might come up, or, you know, you might be out and about and an opportunity presents itself for you to talk about these things. But sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes we just kind of forget to slow down and actually have these conversations unless an issue arises or a situation presents itself. You will see that I have a focus very heavily on safety, emergencies. I have on strangers, that I have on, like, what would you do in this situation, hand washing, health and exercise, and different things like that. Again, sometimes we kind of glaze over this and we don't talk about it unless we absolutely have to, or a situation presents itself. So buying these books, because my kids are geared towards learning through literature, they enjoy that, and I love teaching through literature and through books, then this is what works for my family. There are curriculums out there that you can do, and we probably will do them eventually on fire safety or on emergency preparedness and different things like that, and those are great. But I felt like at this young of an age, the books is what were probably the most beneficial for my child, as well as these we can read over and over and over again. Okay, now not all of these will we get done, okay? They will carry into the summer, and then some of the single ones might carry over, or they might be repeated. We'll just see. And so I have 2 huge stacks, one that I have for the fall, for his kindergarten term, and then this stack is the ones for summer. And I just kind of divvied them up. So if you like the stack of books that I'm showing you and this idea, you'll definitely want to watch that video. Like I said, I'll link it down below if it's available right now. If not, it'll eventually be linked below, but it'll be my kindergarten morning basket or kindergarten morning time. I don't know how I'll title it, but in that video, I will show you the very similar books that are going to cover the emergency and safety. So if this is interesting to you and you want more options, definitely watch that video because I have so many more in that one. So, but this is how I separated them. You maybe would have separated them different, but this is how I did it. So I'm going to start with the 2 books that we will take our time through, and I do plan on these going into my son's fall term. So just kind of keep that in mind. We might do both of these books once a week. We might do them a couple times a week. It just kind of depends. So the first one is, what would you do? Now, I do want to make this clear. I am a Christian mama, and I am aware that there are books out there that are for children and that you should not read to your children, or that it may have verbiage or it may have certain topics that you as a fellow Christian may not feel comfortable. I did not go through every single one of these books, okay? Now, I did look at reviews and I read through, like the synopsis and stuff, and I didn't get any red flags. Now, again, that doesn't mean that there isn't anything in here. So if you're interested in any of these books, don't just take my word for it. You'll want to do your research. You may even want to get it and proofread it, okay? So for me, I'm pretty good at reading through this, and if I catch something, I'll skip over it. But none of these books red flagged me up front as a Christian mama. But with that said, I have not read them in their totality. And I have not read through every single page of these books, and I have just done a very brief research to make sure they weren't like red flagged on Christian websites. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. You'll definitely want to proofread these and just make sure they're okay with what you want your children learning or looking at. So all of these books I didn't just give to my children, because we're going to be covering these in our curriculum, but also because I have not proofread them. And so there could be an image in them. Some people are, some Christians don't want their children seeing certain levels of nudity within children, like with their shirt off or something like that. So just kind of keep that in mind, is that I did not proofread them to that extent. And that's also why I haven't given them to my children freehand yet. Okay, so this is 46 situations for making good choices. So here's like some of the questions to kind of give you an idea. So if you saw a bill fall out of a person's pocket, what would you do? If you found a lost dog, if suddenly you had to go in the pool. So this one is, we make decisions all day, don't we? Do I pick up the dog's poop when I take him out for his walk? Should I tell mom where I really went after school? When I see something wrong happening, what should I do? Making a good choice and doing the right thing, or even knowing right from wrong, can be hard. So let's practice and have fun while we explore some everyday dilemmas. So I did buy this on Thrift Books, and you can kind of see from the table of contents what is going to kind of cover. And then, the images are, again, with what I have flipped through, I mean, they look nice. They are showing kind of the images, and I think just kind of presenting a situation that you don't always just randomly start talking to your children about. And so I'm really excited. I think this will be good. If this is one that you want me to follow up on, I can definitely do that for you guys, and we'll just see how long it takes to go through that. Okay, so the next one is, I can do that. And it says 1,000 ways to become independent. Studies show that children who experience independence from an early age develop higher self-esteem as they grow up. Give your child the gift of confidence with this handy guide to learning life skills and gaining independence, from tying shoelaces and helping around the home to using public transportation and looking after pets. I Can Do That is perfect for preparing children for life's first, from sleep to sleepovers. So I think it's important to look at the table of contents, because it does, again, understanding the book, it does kind of go into more personal care, more personal hygiene. And so if that is not something you feel comfortable, to have an area on like how to wipe and just stuff like that, that again, it does have images. So if you're not okay with that level of nudity or maybe even that type of content in a book, then just kind of keep that in mind. I do like how there's also a page that says note to parents, and it has this area, and then there is a note for kids as well, just that some of these may be more difficult and you know, would be, you know, a hazard is involved in that. There is obviously like knowing how to wash myself, and it does show a child in the shower, again, covered up to an extent, and then there's also like flushing, and there's also like being on the toilet and stuff. I do see a little bit of nudity, male nudity on that. Again, I am reading this with boys, so for me, it's okay because of the way the content of this book is going. Also like that they have some of the more like illustrated illustrations, but then they have more of like illustrations that are actually real pictures in there, and I think that is a lot of fun. And so this is one that we will probably just kind of skip around, kind of like I did with the Manners book, and I definitely don't think we will finish this throughout summer, but I think it'll be really nice for both my 3-year-old as well as my older son. And kids just generally like that. They like reading books and looking at books of kids doing things that they do, right? So the next book is going to be the Busybody book. And so this is just one of those topics that I want to start incorporating. You know, I do work out 6 days a week with a 7th day is more like an active rest mobility type of day, and that's just who I am. I do that more for mental health than physical benefits, honestly, but I've also, you know, reaped a lot of the physical benefits from that. And so I'm a huge proponent of exercise, and I think even at a young age, not like saying, oh my gosh, you have to go work out for an hour or whatever, like not like that, not like how my workouts are scripted, but just showing that there is really a good benefit of, instead of sitting down and just watching TV or sitting down even and looking at books, like there is great benefit to getting outside and riding your bike or running around the backyard. And I think this is really important for all kids to understand and learn, especially homeschool kids, but also just in our day and age where even adults, we all live very sedentary lives. And so I love the illustrations in there. I think they're wonderful. I think they're beautiful, and my kids are gonna love it. I love that there's an area of the muscles, the bones, and the brains, and the nerves. This is just gonna be a wonderful area for introducing exercise and the benefits of moving our body. The next one I have is How Do Dinosaurs Stay Safe? And so my kids are very interested in dinosaurs, so they love Jane Yolen's books, all her dinosaur books. And so this one I think is not going to be an exception. They're going to absolutely love this one, and this is definitely one that we'll sit down, we'll read it in one try. But, you know, it talks about when crossing the street, and it talks about he never goes off with the strangers he meets. So again, they'll love it because it's dinosaurs. They love Jane Yolen's books, but I'm gonna love that we're talking about, you know, kind of that stranger danger, but also that safety component. Okay, and then I got Officer Buckle and Gloria. So I saw a lot of people were recommending this one for safety. It is a little bit more text heavy. The illustrations are cute and they're fun. I'll read just a little bit in the front. Officer Buckle knows more about safety than anyone in the town of Naperville or in Napville, but whenever he tries to share his safety tips, nobody listens until that is the Napville Police Department buys a police dog named Gloria. Unbeknownst to Officer Buckle, Gloria has her own way of demonstrating safety tips, one that makes Napville sit up and take notice. Suddenly, everybody wants to hear Officer Buckle's safety speech, and please please, people say, bring along that police dog. When Officer Buckle discovers he's been upstage, he vows to give up safety tips once and for all. Can Gloria convince her friend to return to the job he loves, or is Napville about to have its worst accident ever? So again, I think it has a very engaging story there. The storyline's a little bit different, but also having that safety component. Okay, I also got the When the Storm Comes, and there's a sticker over the back, so I can't really read what the back says, but neighbors prepare for a big storm, hunker down while the storm rages, and gather in sunshine afterward. For the first reading, curl up with your child and read the book together. Enjoy. For the next readings, here are some ideas for activities to do with your child. Don't try to do everything each time you read it, and most of all, have fun and enjoy. And so they have some different things you can do, which is really kind of cool to make it, a little bit, to add that other element. And so I love the illustrations. My son is definitely a little panicky when I say, oh look, there's rain coming today, and he'll say, well, we can't go outside, but almost in a negative way, a little bit of an anxiety to that. And so I just was like, we need to kind of start talking about storms and bad weather and what we need to do, and maybe the difference between just a rain shower and a thunderstorm compared to a tornado. Okay, we also have Fluffy and Baron, and this story just looked so sweet, and our library didn't have it, and I was like, okay, I want to get that so we can read it. So this is the story of a dog, Baron, and a duck, Fluffy, and the perfect friendship, which is Fluffy and Baron's. Perfect, that is, until Fluffy joins up with the wild ducks from the pond. Suddenly, Baron has no one to play with, eat with, or cuddle up with at night. But when those ducks fly away, Baron's in for a surprise and more friends than he ever expected. With spare text and stirring artwork, Laura Rankin has created a delightful tale of loyalty rewarded based on the author's own childhood pets. And so, like I said, it just looked really sweet. I love the illustrations, and I think this will be really great. So we'll have that one. We also have Strictly No Elephants. So today is Pet Club Day. There will be cats and dogs and fish, but strictly no elephants are allowed. The Pet Club doesn't understand that pets come in all shapes and sizes, just like friends. Now it's time for a boy and his tiny pet elephant to show them what it means to be a true friend. Strictly No Elephants has been sold around the world and is heralded as a pitch-perfect book for inclusion. Imaginative and lyrical, this sweet story captures the magic of friendship and the joy of having a pet. The other one that we have is Voices Are Not for Yelling. So my oldest really struggles with this. He's always struggled with this for a long time. Not necessarily yelling in a bad way, but just his level of his voice is very, very loud indoors. And so I'm hoping that this book will kind of help that voices are not necessarily for yelling, obviously, but also just for you don't have to speak really, really loud. So that's why I kind of got this book. But my youngest has recently started yelling at his brother when he doesn't want something, or when his brother is, bothering him or whatever. And so it kind of now has a dual purpose. Okay. I also got this one, I Can Make a Difference, a first look at setting a good example. And so boys and girls learn that they can set a good example by behaving well and treating other people with kindness. The best way for children to set a good example is to treat others in the same way that they want to be treated themselves. They then can do many things, they can do many little things to set a good example, such as offering to help others and protecting those who are smaller or weaker than they are. And it is written by psychotherapist and counselor Pat Thomas, as you can see. Okay, this one is Sometimes Jokes Aren't Funny, What to Do About Hidden Bully. And they have so many other ones on the back, so I actually am very intrigued with how this story goes, because they have pushing isn't funny, insults aren't funny, and teasing isn't funny. So Jamie, Terry, and Sydney have been going to Camp Barkley since they were puppies, but when a new dog named Taylor joins their cabin, Taylor's mean jokes make Jamie feel left out and picked on. Watching as Jamie struggles with Taylor's bullying and learns safe ways to make it stop. So the real reason I got this is because I find that my son, my oldest, sometimes will just start laughing when somebody drops something and it breaks or things like that. And so I felt like this would just be kind of a good launching point at the very least to kind of talk about, hey, do you think that so-and-so appreciated that you laughed when they dropped something and it broke? And again, he understands, like he'll say, well, I'm not joking, I'm not laughing at them, I'm laughing that when they dropped it, that was funny. And so this is really, I think, more of a launching point, but again, I haven't proofread it, so I'll be interested to see what all they cover in this and if it kind of ties back to what my son is doing or not. We also have understand and care. So again, kind of branching on that same thing of my son not necessarily like meaning to laugh at the person, but just laughing at the thing that happened, which is probably upsetting or distressing to the one that it happened to. So empathy, a sincere personal understanding of how another person feels, is essential to a healthy relationship, and this book builds empathy in children. In child-friendly words and supporting illustrations, it helps them understand that other people have feelings like theirs and different from theirs. It guides them to show they care by listening to others and respecting their feelings. And then in that same realm is talk and work it out. So this one is, it's never too soon for children to learn the process of peaceful conflict resolution. This book distills it into clear, simple words and supporting illustrations. Children learn that they can calm themselves, talk about the problem, and listen to understand, think of ways to solve, and then choose the best plan. When a solution isn't possible, they can still show respect. And so I think this one will be really good, especially just with play dates that we are having, or even just with his brother, that you don't always have to come and tattle, you know, and tell mom and dad, or instead of doing something, reciprocating a bad behavior back to your younger brother, you could talk. And he's actually gotten better at doing that, where he will say to his brother, you know, I didn't like that you did that. That makes me really frustrated, and I don't want to play with you anymore if you're going to keep doing that. So he has gotten better. But I think this will just kind of, you know, be facilitating that discussion a little bit more. And then I got this one, Not Everyone is Nice. And so again, just kind of going into that stranger danger, I find that my kids are both really good about stranger danger, and I don't know if that's because, you know, they're homeschooled and they're pretty much with me all day. But I do notice, like, when we go to speech appointments or we're out and about, like, you know, they're definitely a little bit more sheltered, and I think that's also just their personality as well. But regardless of your child's personality or their behavior, it's always good to have these kinds of discussions. And I think the worst ones are not a stranger breaking into your backyard and stealing your child, or grabbing them and snatching them at the grocery store. I think the bigger threat is when a stranger pulls up and says, hey, I lost my dog, can you help me find it? That is one that I have, as someone who listens to a lot of true crime, is very sadly one that's very successful. Or I have candy or ice cream, or hey, your mom and dad said, you know, that they can't pick you up, but they want me to take you. Or, oh, hey, your mom said that she wants me to take you to go see your dad, or something weird like that. It's like those three things are very successful at tricking a child to going with somebody. And so this one, I think, will probably discuss those. And you know, regardless, it will get us into that position where somebody's in the car and there's several different things they could say that are successful, right? Okay, so that is my morning time, morning basket, morning kind of routine, or just the summer plans for homeschooling for my kids. Again, my oldest 5 will be going into kindergarten, and so comment down below, let me know what you're doing, or what you maybe did before your kindergartner started, or regardless of what age your children are, or regardless of what grade level you're getting ready to go in, what are your summer plans? Let us know. We would love to know. And let me know if you've read any of these books, or I would love to know if you have any great books that are kind of in that realm of safety and emergency preparedness and just things like that. I would love to know. I hope that this video was helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.